Let's go to Winnipeg now. Troy Westwood joins us from TSN 1290 Radio. Winnipeg Bomber great on the video chat this morning. Morning, Westy. How are you?
Doing pretty well, brother. How you doing?
Good. Are you down because of the Bombers? You seem a little dejected right now. Is that because of this quarterback situation?
Well, no, I'm not down because of that. But, boy, it was a disheartening loss, wasn't it? Just the Ticats came in and just outclassed the Bombers on both sides of the ball. So it was of great concern. We're talking about a team here, the Bombers, that have been riding high in the Western Division throughout basically the entirety of the year up to this point in time. And you wake up Monday morning and all of a sudden they're on the road if the playoffs were to start. So it's a little bit of a slap to the face, I guess, for folks that had high expectations of this team.
Well, so last week Mike O'Shea says even with Matt Nichols going down, we're good. I believe that was the quote with Chris Streveler. Does he still feel that way after the game, do you think? And how do you feel? Should they be in the market for a veteran quarterback, or can Streveler get him to the Grey Cup?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way last week. I had this ultimate hope that Matt Nichols would be ready and the Bombers would rival the Huffnagel-Clemens kind of a thing going into the playoffs this year. But that was squashed when Nichols was done for the season. But even with him being out, I didn't lose a lot of the hope or optimism with Chris Streveler. The strides he had taken the last couple of weeks, the 2 weeks previous, he was at 79% pass completion. I thought he looked really good in the Banjo Bowl and looked pretty solid the next week. And then against Hamilton, there's a couple of opportunities he had to run with the ball approaching the line of scrimmage, and he was more interested in passing than he was in running. And I can understand that. All the quarterbacks I know who run a lot always want to eventually morph into a passing quarterback. It's not fun getting hit every time you cross the line of scrimmage and that sort of thing. So it just seemed it was strange. Looked like he was looking to pass a little bit more so than he was to run. Definitely, ultimately, this is a step in the wrong direction here. And I do agree that I think the Bombers should make an aggressive move. Now, I know they went after Kevin Glenn and they made him an offer, but when you're talking about a guy who's maybe hesitant to leave his family, man, you're looking at, 5-6 weeks right now for a possibility to go get a Grey Cup. If I was the Bombers, I would be offering him a pile of money. There's no one that's going to come in and be able to pick up the playbook quicker than Kevin Glenn. I think Kevin Glenn could make all the same passes right now that Matt Nichols could. A lot of nickel and dime kind of stuff. I would go aggressive after specifically Kevin Glenn here, thinking that he could pick up the playbook. And I still have some level of faith in Chris Streveler going forward.
Hey, Westy, I guess a boot. You can see me, so I don't have to tell you who it is. Good to see you still got that gold-plated bed headboard there.
How would you know?
Man, we were teammates for 5 years. Jeez.
Still.
That's okay. Continue.
Well, I forgot what I was going to say, but you're looking
wow.
good. No. We've seen Streveler have great games, and you kind of touched on he's trying to be something that he's not. Whenever we've seen him the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about the Bombers talking about coaching. Lapo did a great job. The defense did a bad job. Let's talk about Hamilton's prep for Streveler. Now that opposing defensive coordinators know who they're preparing for, do you think Streveler's he's a great football player. Is he a good enough quarterback to overcome the plays designed specifically to stop him?
I think against most of the defenses he is, Boo. And I was freaked out in week 7 when the Bombers played the Tiger Cats and Matt Nichols was in the game. I could not believe how dominant that defense was and how much disruption they caused Matt Nichols, man. They were unbelievable. And for the Ticats lost Jeremiah Mazzoli in the first quarter and the Bombers lost that game. Dane Evans had no experience whatsoever. He looked horrible when he went in, and the defense held the Ticats to 22 points, and the offense couldn't get enough done to win that game in week 7. So I was worried about the defense coming into this game, and they just seemed to really manhandle everything the Bombers were contemplating offensively. So I think Chris Streveler, I believe, was injured in the second half of the week previous. He had 8 rushing attempts for 81 yards in the first half, and only 1 in the second half in the previous game. And coming into this game, he just didn't seem as interested or dedicated in running. I think so long as he is really living that RPO, the run pass option, and you've got him there, you've got Andrew Harris, and you've got a threat of a throw, then I think he's a real difficult situation to sort of stop. But whatever Hamilton was doing, they certainly figured it out. And I think defenses now also are sliding into more zone coverage against him. And that seems to be confusing him a little bit more. I think he can read man a lot easier, obviously. And if you start utilizing some tricky zone against him, that seems to be a little bit confusing. And certainly the defenses seem to be catching up to him. I don't know if they can bring enough to the table, emphasizing the run game to the degree they have to be successful late in the season or come playoff time.
We got a few. Sorry, you got to follow?
Well, I just want to say, I think I don't think the Hamilton defense is getting nearly enough credit for this past game. Like they're I can't think of a better defense than them right now. But you may have alluded to this already. Streveler's thinking too much, and there's no room for thinking in football.
Yeah, that's always right. You want to just be acting and reading things and be way more fluid in that manner. But I think he's in a position where he's green and making sound decisions. We know Paul LaPolice always really emphasizes or possibly overemphasizes ball security. And so I don't know how he can avoid a great deal of thought when you're Chris Streveler out there. It's just going to be very interesting to see if he can do the things necessary. Like, can the Bombers, I've been absolutely mystified this year, fellas. When is the last time a team has been last in the CFL in passing and have any sort of a team held in high regard? Like, the Bombers had the best record in the CFL for an extended period of time with the worst pass offense in the league, and not by a little bit, by 60 yards a game sort of thing. So this, averaging 146 on the ground. The game before was like watching an American college play, the way that they were running and all that sort of stuff. I just don't know how long you can rely on that, how long it'll take for teams to equip themselves defensively to be in that sort of mindset to stop it, for it to be successful. And the biggest concern for me in this team, and maybe even more so than Chris Streveler, fellas, is the secondary. The Bombers, it was like 750 yards in something like 3 quarters between the final quarter against Montreal and the first 2 quarters last game. The secondary is god-awful. And I just don't know if Willie Jefferson and the boys up front don't cause remarkable disturbance, the back end cannot hold its own. And that is, I think, an even bigger worry, if you can believe it, than the quarterback position.
The Tiger Cats have the best record in the CFL, Troy, and I don't know if you got this off them when they were out there in Winnipeg last week, but they're upset they're not getting enough credit, which is fine, whatever it takes to motivate you. But are they the best team in the CFL in your mind here as we head into Week 17?
I think so, fellas. And we were, during the game, I was sitting there with the legend, Chris Walby, and we were like, you know what, man, like, it's real easy to sit in the West and look at a team like Hamilton and go, they play all those games against Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, right? There's a sort of an inflated record. But in the 8 quarters I've seen them play against the Bombers, fellas, they are dominant. And this Dane Evans out of nowhere sort of thing, like, he had 308 yards against the Bombers at halftime. His throwing, the precision and the salt and pepper on the ball across, like, he just looked fantastic out there. And then, as Boo was saying, and I agree, the defense of Hamilton, I think, you look at the stats, they're in the 4-hole in a lot of spots. They are scary, nasty good. So I have to lean a little bit. I mean, I don't want to, the Stamps are like the Patriots, right? I don't know if you want to take anything away from the Stampeders until they're out and done. But Hamilton is dang good, fellas, and they may well be the best team in the CFL right now.
Well, impressive. The one thing, sorry, Troy, that I want to know is, how are the people in Winnipeg doing? I know you probably get tons of calls. Are they okay right now, or are they completely losing faith?
Yeah, that's a concern. I don't know how to take the temperature of that. I do know that early on, the first quarter of the season, people were reluctant. They wanted to push their chips in the middle of the table, but they were really reluctant to. About midway, about halfway through or so, people were getting pretty geeked up and excited. The Bombers were staying at the top of the West, and things were on the up. The defense was looking good and all the rest of it. So a lot of people became emotionally invested. We're talking about a 29-year drought this year since this club has won the championship. And now it's basic sheer panic at this point in time, or just flat tears. Like, people either panicking or they're starting to cry. So I don't. For the most part. I just think people are really worried. When you wake up this morning and you look at the CFL standings and you've been riding so high, and all of a sudden, if the playoffs start, we're driving to Regina or we're flying to Regina. That's just, it's brutal. And especially for this fan base that seems to operate 365, 1 degree below boiling, right? This team that they've held in such high regard, the Messiah possibly in Chris Streveler, and now they're in third place. It's not a good combination.
For those that missed it, Troy Westwood earlier saying that they do need a veteran quarterback. It should be Kevin Glenn, none of these other guys that we're talking about. Now, those are the Bomber fans, of which several of them are my friends, and they are upset. You're bang on that. But what about the Jets? Just to flip it, they're very excited there with their hockey team. We sit and wait in the Buffalo and watch. That's really all that's missing here as we get ready for the Rangers on Thursday night. Right, Westy?
I thought the tweet of the day during the Bomber game was Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press asking who's got the worst defense, the Bombers or the Jets, right? Because Byfuglien's sitting out right now. So huge concern, fellas. And you know, Dustin Byfuglien has always been an interesting study since he's been here. He's always come across to me, and any of us that have been around sports have known athletes that are super talented, but that maybe they just don't have that same level of fire that others do. And to me, Dustin Byfuglien is that guy. I know when he's playing the game, it looks like he's having lots of fun and all the rest of it. But I don't think like the preparation and the things that come along with it, practice and training and stuff like that, I just don't think that appeals to him a whole lot. And I remember last year vividly the media was asking members of the Jets, what's different about the playoffs than the regular season? And across the board, all the Jets answered it the way a kid would talk about candy standing in a candy store. They're geeked. It's different. Something's different about the playoffs, no matter what the sport you're playing. And Dustin Byfuglien sort of just said, it's no different, just another game. And I remember hearing him say that. I was like, who thinks like that? Who can think that the playoffs are just another game? And to me, it's always been a job to Dustin Byfuglien. And he's referenced it as that on a number of occasions. And so I just kind of wonder, a guy that's in his mid-30s, a guy who's suffered injury the last couple of years. He's got plenty in the bank. I think any day of the week he would rather be fishing, ice fishing, or out in a boat somewhere than he would be playing hockey. And if he didn't skate in that Beauty League, a league that he did down in Minnesota this whole summer, didn't skate in it, normally did. So I really wonder that fire, when that fire goes out, I've seen it happen twice in our locker room. And when it went out in the guys, an athlete there's nothing you can do when you don't have that fire in your belly to put the work in to be able to compete at the highest level. And certainly like the CFL is the second highest level to the NFL, but it's still a high level for the fellas to go at every second night, the NHL and the grind of the NHL season. If you don't have that inner drive, you're done. And as a guy in your mid-30s with all the cake he has in the bank and all the rest of it, I'm going to be really surprised if Dustin Byfuglien ever comes back.
I'm with you. And I've said, if you're not dying to do it, Buff, don't do it. He's made $50 million in his career. I totally get it. And Westy, just before we let you go, a gentleman named Tom Geiger has written in on Facebook. He says, when he played, Westwood was top 3 in hated players. Now, have to say, love listening to his insight. Love to have a pop with him. There you go, my friend. There you go. You got fans out here.
The one thing that really bugs me about the Dustin Byfuglien thing, and I try to be open-minded and accepting about this, fellas, is that, hey, if there's other things at work here outside of hockey, if it's family or something, then I tip my hat to you. But if this is sheerly about the fire in your belly, I really feel strongly against telling the guys on the team on the eve of training camp, I'm out, fellas. I can't do this anymore. I think that's crap. You can't do that. Like, just if you don't have the fire in your belly, then you got to manufacture the fire in your belly for that final season, just for the guys in the room. I don't understand how you can shut it down at training camp, the start of it, saying, guys, I'm out. I can't do that. He should have done that at the end of the season, right? And if you couldn't do it then you got to give the guys in the room one more season and do it at the end of this season. That's really quite remarkable to me. I don't know. I could never, as an athlete, do that to the guys in the room that I love, and you've gone to battle with, as they have, year in, and he's got long relationships with someone. Just don't understand how you do that to the guys in the room.
He wouldn't be the first, but you're totally right on that. Westy, we got to let you go. Appreciate it, my man. Keep in touch.
Take care, fellas.
And Ty saying that was Westy's rant for Bronco Plumbing and Heating. But I could hear, there you go.
Boom.
Troy Westwood bringing the boom on Dustin Byfuglien.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.